Joining us is the Director of National Economic Council, Kevin Hassett. Welcome, Mr. Director. Analyze the U.S.-China takeaway. Yes, sir. Thank you. Analyze the takeaways from the U.S.-China agreement, verbal or otherwise, as we currently know them.
Right. Well, the U.S.-China agreement is just a terrific deal negotiated by President Trump. What it does is it makes sure that the parts of the imports from China that go into our economy and could potentially be bottlenecks are no longer being threatened to be shut down. And the Chinese are also buying a heck of a lot of soybeans and other things from our farmers, which they had neglected to do over the last few months. And meanwhile, our tariffs on China remain in place much higher than they were in January. So I would say that we've put more pressure on China. We worked out a collegial deal with two friends, President Xi and President Trump. But in the end, we came out ahead because we've got the tariff revenue from China, and China's taken everything back to about where we were in January.
All right, let me switch to the U.S. economy. The market is reaching all-time highs. Is this a sugar high, or can it be sustained? I mean, it seems like almost every week all I see is green. I don't see that much red anymore.
Well, you know, markets go up and down, so people shouldn't be counting on it always going up. But the fact is that President Trump is promising to deliver a golden age for the American economy. And if that happens, it's going to be great for America's workers and great for America's corporations. In part, that's because what President Trump has always recognized is true, that if we create a climate that is strong for business, then it's also going to create a lot of jobs and be strong for workers. The thing that I'm most happy about is we're seeing really high wage growth, especially for people at the bottom, and we're seeing consumers be really, really optimistic. So right now, year-over-year consumption is about 6 or 7% higher than it was last year, which means that people have more money in their pockets and they're spending it.
All right, let me pivot to the shutdown. It is definitely impacting life for our fellow Americans. Do you think it will eventually, or is it now, impacting the broader economy?
Yeah, it definitely is. It's really important that the Democrats stop messing around with people's food and with the salaries for the 750,000 workers that depend on the government to, pay the bills for their kids and their families. We got to get the government open. And the fact is that right now, our estimate of the harm for the current quarter is probably about 0.5% lower GDP, which is a real loss for America. I don't really understand what the Democrats are doing, and I'm not sure they understand what they're doing now. This is the second longest shutdown in American history, and they're putting everything from food stamps to everything else on the table for what reason? It feels like they've lost their minds to me.
Yeah, I was there for the now second longest shutdown. All right, let me ask you about the Fed. Jerome Powell cuts rates, and then he says that he might be the Grinch at Christmas. He says he can't drive in the fog, but cars have fog lights. What is he talking about?
The thing that I was disappointed in, I was glad that they cut rates. And the thing that I was disappointed in the Jay's statement is that since the last meeting where everybody said they were going to cut 3 times, and that's what futures markets expected, we've had a government shutdown, which makes, as we just said, GDP growth go down, puts less pressure on inflation. And we got the one inflation report since the last Fed meeting that showed that it was much tamer than expected. In fact, at Bloomberg, 43 economists forecasted what inflation would be, and it came in below every single one of those 43 forecasts. And so with inflation down and surprising, and with economic growth perhaps slowing a bit because of the shutdown, it doesn't make sense that all of a sudden they would say, hey, we're not going to cut rates in December. And so I still worry that the Fed has become a partisan body, and, we'll see.
All right, Kevin, we had some success with one country that starts with C. Let me ask you about one a little bit closer to home, Canada. Did you see a trade deal on the horizon with our neighbors to the north, and what will it take to get to that point?
Yeah, it's been a tough negotiation, but we're still hopeful that it'll move forward. You know, I have to tip my cap to the fans of the Toronto Blue Jays. I mean, what a great World Series we just saw from two great teams. I know they're pretty disappointed today, but you know, in the end, we've got to move Canada and Mexican trade deals forward, and it's been much harder in Canada than Mexico. I think in part because there's a left-wing government in Canada that reminds quite a bit of the Democrats here in the U.S., and so they're almost never Trumpy at times, and I think that's something that we have to get over in order to close a final deal.
All right, we'll leave with the World Series. For those who didn't watch it, it looked like Kevin Hassett on the dance floor, that little toe tap that the catcher did, or else Toronto would have won the World Series. I thought of you or Fred Astaire when I saw that. Thank you for joining us, Kevin, on a Sunday night.
Thanks. Good to see you.
Take care.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.